What's going on, Jerome's? With the 2024 NFL Draft in the rear view, the Minnesota Vikings currently at the 90-man roster limit after supplementing with 17 UDFAs, but there's still a couple spots where the Vikings could take it to the limit one more time. Actually, no, I hate the freaking Eagles. Anyways, there's still a couple spots where the Vikings could freshen things up along the rooster in free agency. And yes, immediately when people talk about free agency, it's going to be OBJ. You can fully understand, right? But I feel like the ship has sailed. The Vikings have had ample opportunity to bring in Odell Beckham Jr. at some point, but the connection between he and JJ is legit, sure. But he's another year older and another year of mild production coming off his season with the Ravens. And I know, well, Kevin O'Connell and the Rams, they won a Super Bowl with OBJ. Fully understand that, but also remember that Kwesi was in the front office as assistant GM when the Browns waived Odell Beckham Jr., right? So the fact that, but they know OBJ, they also know OBJ, right? And I feel like at this point with his age, the juice is simply not worth the squeeze, and we can focus our attention elsewhere. But the Vikings didn't draft a receiver. I get it, man. But here are 8. Ocho post-draft free agents for the Minnesota Vikings, ironically starting at receiver. Not ironic, incidentally. So Hunter Renfrow is only 28. It seems like he's been around forever, right? Because was he at Clemson for 17 years? But Renfrow the last 2 years with the Raiders, they were constantly trying to trade him. They weren't playing him. They weren't catering the offense to his skill set, and it's just weird because he had a damn good season 2021. He's a Pro Bowler, 103 catches, 1,038 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns. He is legitimate from the slot, and he still is relatively young. And even though he's been on the trade blocks the last couple of years, I still think that there is some value there. And I think that he is humble enough to work with Jefferson and Addison and know that he is going to be he's going to be the fourth option, once Hockenson gets back in this passing game. I think he's fine with that. And also I think that he has a little bit of redemption to prove that the last couple of years of mild production with the Raiders wasn't necessarily his fault. Number 2, sticking in the slot. So Tyler Boyd. Now, there's been rumors and scuttlebutt that the Vikings are in a Tyler Boyd. I could fully understand that. He's 29 years young, does turn 30 in November. Been a 8-year veteran slot machine in Cincinnati. Also team captain, so a good leader voice in that locker room and in that receiver room. Last year, 67 catches, 667 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. All that in the shadow of Jamar Chase as well as T. Higgins. So he's used to being that tertiary option in the passing game. Next up, free agent number 3. So Connor Williams. So Connor Williams has an asterisk by him because that health is a major question. And it's a spot where he will probably go unsigned until he's 100%. But the reports and the rumors around that ACL, it's not good. But he's only 26. The pride of Texas hook him. So he's a second-round pick by the Cowboys back in the day. Signed a free agent deal with the Dolphins. Became a center. He was a guard with the Cowboys. He was a tackle of Texas. And he had 2 really good years at center for the Dolphins. An 86.5 grade before he got hurt last year. And the Vikings definitely could use some freshening at both of those spots. And with Williams, when he gets back, he gets back. If he gets back, right? But he is a damn good player at a position of need for the Vikings. And it's just Kwesi loves medical guys. Kwesi loves mama can change him type players. So I think that the risk with Williams would make sense. Next up, post-draft free agent number 4. Dalton Risner, come on up for the Risner. Now, again, I get it. I fully understand that, hey, how come the Vikings didn't have an offer on the table for Risner before? Would he be soured on things? Now, we don't like to say that we're a journalist or reporter, but we have heard some legitimate scuttlebutt that maybe a deal in Miami is in the works. Because the Dolphins, losing Connor Williams as well as Robert Hunt in free agency, definitely could backfill some interior offensive line, but the Vikings signing Blake Brandel to a 3-year deal, they clearly see him as in the mix, if not the de facto starting left guard, and also the way that the Vikings handled the draft. But Risner, if he's not guaranteed a spot, is it going to be a second offseason where he's not in a camp, he's not on a 90-man, and he signs in season again? It's kind of ridiculous. And even if he's on a reduced contract here with incentives and has to compete for a spot, would he be open to that? You seem to love the Vikings and this locker room, but We'll see. On the defensive side of the ball, number 5, James Lynch. So if the name sounds familiar, it's because he's been a Viking the last 4 years. Now, he's only 25, but last year, sort of out of sight, out of mind, he tore his ACL during OTAs. And what really sucks about it is that James Lynch was a bad dude at Baylor. Like that, he came to the league as a bit of a tweener, so wasn't quick enough to be an edge rusher, but also wasn't stout enough at 6'4", 295 to be an every down defensive interior player. Now did bulk up a little bit and was able to get a little bit of run towards the end of the Zimmer regime, but I feel like the switch to the 3-4 and Flores coming in, I feel like he would have benefited greatly because I think that he would have been the perfect fit for a 4-tech, 5-tech who can get his own pass rush as well as a passing down nose tackle, but didn't come to fruition. And he's just out there chilling. Hopefully the ACL rehab is good to go. And I think that he would be worth a flyer. I think that he would be worth a shot because even after the draft and even after undrafted free agents, there's still a spot on that interior for a guy that can blow up a gap and get his own rush. And Lynch could be that. And also, that the pride of Baylor will be playing with his hair on fire. Number 6, also along the defensive line. So Calais Campbell. I understand he's 37 years old. I do not care. I mean, Calais can still get after it. 6'8", 292, 6.5 sacks for the Falcons last year, which is just redonkulous, and the Falcons' defense was not very good. But he brings leadership, he brings passion, he brings hard work, he brings just consistency. Like he's got 105 career sacks, and also last year he had a 5-year high in tackles with 56. So he wasn't just loafing out there and cherry picking sacks like some older veterans that you've seen around the league. Now, like Calais Campbell will still get in there and work, and we'd love to see him back in purple because he looked pretty good in the Ravens jersey too. Next up, number 7. Yes, cornerback Xavier Howard. Now, this could be a stand-in for Xavier Howard. This could be Stephon Gilmore. This could be whatever. And even though the Vikings spent a 4th-round pick on Kyrie Jackson, and also I love UDFA corner Dwight McLaughlin, I mean, Xavier Howard, of course, like he said on the Udonis Haslem Mike Miller podcast, like he and Flores aren't buddy-buddy, but he knows the scheme. He knows what is expected in the defense. He's a little bit older than when he was at his peak, 2nd-round pick out of Baylor. He hit his zenith when Flores was head coach down there in South Beach, but he is still a legitimate cover corner in this league, and I think the Vikings, again, going back to Kwesi's Moneyball, I mean, is this the David Justice where you just squeeze the last little bit out of Xavier Howard at a reduced rate? It's possible. Lastly, number 8, nose tackle Cameron Young. So Cameron Young is young. He's 23, turns 24 in June. Now, he's highlighted because he's currently on the Seahawks. But with the regime change, Mike McDonald coming in, I think that he might be available. And even though the Vikings have 3 draft picks next year, could we do a little something? Like, could we swap Andrew Booth Jr. for Cameron Young or something like that? And he was a 4th-rounder last year, 2023. I loved him in the draft process coming out of Mississippi State. He is a tough, a good size, lengthy nose tackle, and I think that he would have tremendous upside. Now, with regime change, you never know, even though Schneider remains in place as GM, but he is buried on the depth chart behind Jaron Reed and Jonathan Hankins, so it could be a spot where he is available. And in terms of defensive interior snaps, they got Byron Young coming in as a 1st-round pick as well, so that could dry things up. But the Vikings are still lacking that true one-tech, and I think that Cameron Young, who, like I said, I loved in the draft process last year, I think that given the changeover in Seattle, maybe he becomes available. So we'll see. Anyways, that's it. That's 8. Well, 7. Post-draft free agents and the one guy to trade for. For the Vikings, let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Once worth of work, put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.